And I had just started 3Com the week before. So we agreed to have lunch at this hippie restaurant in, in Cupertino. I forget the name of the street. And so he's recruiting, he's a fierce recruiter, and I'm selling. I had devised a network for the Apple II. And now pay attention, I called it Orchard. Steve did not immediately embrace that marketing idea. So, but then Steve did a very nice thing. When I told him I was determined to run my own company and not join his, he helped me. He didn't get mad. He didn't, throw one of his fits. He helped me for the next 15 years to build 3Com. And he's the one who said, "You're going to raise venture capital. You should buy an Apple II." And use this insanely great software called VisiCalc. And so 3Com's business plan was VisiCalc. The funny thing was VisiCalc didn't have the capability of consolidating months into quarters or years, so that my business plan had 60 months of every product that I had proposed. By month, 60 months. And the VCs laughed.
I think so many people know you as a great engineer, but maybe one thing people don't know is you were the head of sales for 3Com, and you sort of led the charge a lot of times. Why did you make that switch, and why was that important to do that?
Well, many shifts are done out of desperation. So we had raised some venture capital and we were spending it, and I had projected when Ethernet would be adopted, and I was off by about 6 months. So my board, which I had carefully constructed, said, maybe you shouldn't be CEO anymore. And Bill Krause, he should take over. And so he did. And I went into a week-long funk, but then came back, unlike other founders I know. And the company was so desperate, they made me head of sales and marketing. A measure of our desperation.
Yeah.
And the theory there was, having invented Ethernet, I could get appointments with people. So it was personal selling. But then after a few months of that, I recruited 6 regional managers to be our sales force. And I took us to $1 million a month, and then we went public. In those days, you had to be profitable to go public. So times change.
Yeah.
In our IPO in March of 1984, Morgan Stanley was our banker, and we raised $11 million.
Big numbers.
Yeah, that's an A round here.
I think one of the other things you guys did very deliberately, and I think came from you, is using the channel to grow when the large companies weren't looking. What was that like? How did that come about? Why did you decide to do that?
We had this card that you could plug into a PC and put it on a network. And I took our 6 salespeople and we went out and called on all the people who buy computers. And we discovered that they were all IBM employees. Not formally, but they owed their whole life to IBM. So they weren't going to buy anything from us. So we made a smooth move. We were lucky. At that time, a thing called computer retail was getting business land, computer land, a lot of lands. And so we decided to go, our channel strategy was to sell through the retail channel into businesses, and it worked. And so we went around IBM's army of salespeople.
How did normal people understand Ethernet? They go buy a computer, it's plugged in, the first time using it. What did you hear from maybe friends and family, and what was that like on how they perceived it? Did they understand what was going on? They're just like, I just want to get online or connect something. But what was the zeitgeist back then?
So they would say, what are you working on? I say, well, I'm working on a network called Ethernet. Oh, interesting. What's it used for?
Right.
And then I would say, it's very general purpose. It can do lots of things, lots of different things. It can carry packets of all kinds and nothing. Then I learned to say, so you need a killer app. So we had a killer app. we learned, we listened to our customers. PFMTS. You buy Ethernet and you can PFMTS. Share a printer, P. Share files. IBM was then shipping a 20 megabyte disk, and no one knew what to do with all that storage. So we offered a way to share it, PF, and then M is mail,
Right.
and then T was terminal connections, and S was stubs, which was the word for API at the time. People bought that. So instead of saying it's good for everything, we named specific things. Printers cost, by the way, the Appalachian printer cost $7,000, so it made sense to share it. So PFMTS, and that it took off from there.
When was like the takeoff moment? Was that late 80s, early 90s, or when
We
was
went
it?
public in March of '84.
Yeah.
And so, the 80s were the heyday of networking. And we're returning to the heyday of networking. Networking is coming back now. It's got eclipsed by this AI thing.
We'll get to that.
We're gonna eventually get to AI.
Yeah. I don't like saying that word, so I'll let you say it.
Artificial intelligence. Would you like to know the title of my thesis from MIT in 1968?
Okay, let me set this up, okay? So, he was not in networking at all. He was trying to do other things, and his advisor was probably one of the greatest computer scientists of all time, Marvin Minsky. Okay, you can go.
So I got Marvin to be my undergraduate thesis advisor at MIT in 1968. And at the time, I was the captain of the MIT tennis team. And coming back from Vermont one evening, the day before the thesis deadline, I'm in the yellow school bus writing this dissertation that was due the next morning in Marvin's office. I presented it I made the deadline. He accepted it, but he didn't like it. So instead of recruiting me to join his AI lab, he sent me down the hall to work with JCR Licklider on a thing called the ARPANET. So Marvin got me into the networking business, and it's worked out.
I'd say. So it took off in the 80s, and then 90s was just all this build out of fiber and telecom. What was that like when all this telecom was getting laid out? Primarily go connect computers, right? And what was that energy like? And
Well, it got pretty exciting. I used to run conferences during that period, and I ran one called Vortex, which is for the suppliers of fiber and the ISPs and so on. After that conference, 4 of my speakers went to jail for fraudulently promoting the internet.
right.
The guy from AT&T, Bernie Evers, they all went. It's very odd to have a conference where your attendees go to jail. But we succeeded.
None of you, hopefully.
But what happened was this bubble caused a lot of fiber to be strung.
Right.
And then when it collapsed, the fiber was still there, and you could light it. The term was light it up.
Right.
So it was sitting there dark, and then so we had this flywheel effect that got us to the real internet. I mean, the internet during that bubble was growing, just wasn't growing at this huge rate.
What was your first favorite like app on the internet when you were using it, and like when you first started using it a lot?
PFMTS.
After that.
After that,
Internet 1.5.
so I was publishing a magazine called InfoWorld, and I had to give an award as the publisher. I gave an award for the app of the year, and I decided that this web thing called Mosaic up at Illinois. So I decided to give the InfoWorld award to Mark Andreessen. So I went to Illinois, and by the time I got there, he was gone. And I kept wanting to give the award to somebody, and I couldn't find anybody. It turned out Illinois had behaved very badly. And so he stormed off and came here. I remember running into him in at the computer store there on El Camino. And he was forming Netscape. And he wanted to call it Mosaic, but Illinois wouldn't let him.
Right.
That was
the whole kerfuffle.
that
Yeah.
was stupid.
Yeah. And, throughout the years in technology, the last 40, 50 years, the word sort of bubble gets thrown around a lot. Even today with all the build out that's happening. Did you all know when all the fiber build out was happening that it was like clearly going to be a bubble? Or what was the perception like for folks like you who had seen the 80s leading up to the 90s and 99?
Do you think AI is some sort of a bubble?
I'm not answering that.
So one of my life's endeavors is the innovation process. And I've concluded that bubbles are an innovation tool. They cause innovations to occur that might not otherwise.
Right.
And the important thing is when the music stops, you need a chair. So they are a tool, but you need to play them properly so you don't end up without a chair. And, so I'm a big fan of bubbles. Just have a chair.
You heard it here. Big fan of bubbles.
Yeah.
You were part of, when we talked about Minsky earlier, probably one of the first labs that was thinking about neural networks. And I think your thesis had that.
Oh, I forgot to say.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Anyway, this thesis that Marvin accepted but didn't like, the title of this 1968 thesis was A Neuron Model and some of its information processing capabilities. And what that means is, I've been watching AI go like this since 1968. It's been going like this, and then it goes like this. So it's over here now, right?
Right.
It's getting ready to.
Okay, I believe.
So connectivity should be the hot thing, not AI.
Yeah, tell me more. We were talking about that dinner at last night, how you were saying, usually people latch onto these apps, but how important connectivity is. And what we saw in the video, you were saying that's something we should all be proud of. What's your view there? How did you form that view?
Connectivity is so important, it's even more important than AI. Or, it is AI. Remember, neural network, the word network, that's one of our words.
Right.
And it's over there in AI land. So you could argue that AI is a connectivity app. And the connectivity in question is the 10 to the 11th neurons, 10 to the 4th per neuron synapses. We just need another, I forget the number now, 1.6 tera parameters, and then we'll have human intelligence due to connectivity. So connectivity is hot, not AI in particular.
Yeah. You teach today at UT, taught at Stanford before that. Do you think this last two generations of folks you help teach, do they understand that? Like on how much connectivity is the basis of all these things? Or what do you see from your students?
The internet is going through a dark period now, where almost everything is being blamed on it, and wrongly blamed on everything. And there's this one chart that I need to get updated that shows the number of people on Earth and the number of people living in poverty on Earth, starting in 18 something, and the curve goes like this, looks like a nice exponential. And then in 1985, for the first time in the history of the world, it goes like this.
Right.
And I claim that's the impact of the internet in reducing poverty in the world. And the internet's a good thing, not a bad thing.
What do you hope to see from connectivity, internet, networking for the next, let's say 10 years? What are some ideas that you were like, how is nobody still doing this? Or
Well, I think networks should be built, not bought. I'm really looking forward to autonomous networks.
You're just messing with me now.
And one of my pet peeves is that edge on the connector that sticks out and so you can tear your clothes on it. That's gone, that's been handled now.
You can see why he used to be a great interviewer, because he's better at this than I am.
You're not too bad. Look, you have notes and everything.
I'm acting like I have notes. I see. It just makes me look good.
So, does anyone want to know why the first Ethernet ran at 2.94 megabits per second?
Yeah.
We all
Well, it's a valuable lesson, actually. So Dave Boggs and I were given the job of building Ethernet for this coming PC down in Palo Alto called the Alto. And this card they gave us could hold 60 chips. So these chips in those days were 14-pin dual inline packages with 2 flip-flops on them or something. But we had to get the network built on this card. And we got almost done, and it was time to put the clock on the card. When you put this packet on the cable, you had to clock it onto the cable so it could wiggle its way down the cable. And we discovered we had no more room on the card. It was full of chips and we didn't have a clock. But then we noticed that there was a pin on the back plane of the Alto that was the system clock of the Alto. And it ticked every 170 nanoseconds. And we were planning to use Manchester encoding, which is 2 transitions per bit. That's 340 nanoseconds per bit. And if you do the inverse, 340 nanoseconds turns out to be 2.94 megabits per second. So here I am sitting with my Texas Instruments Silent 700 terminal, 300 bits per second. And in comes my Ethernet connection, which was, I'll just use a round number, 10,000 times faster. Not 10%. Were you talking about 10% earlier in this?
Yeah, unfortunately. I didn't say big numbers like you.
This was 10,000 times faster. And so that, for the first time, made bandwidth abundant and possibly made it economical to upload cat pictures. So I was on a panel once where there was a 1200 baud guy and a 2400 baud guy at me. And they got into an argument about whether you really needed 2400 bits per second, whether 1200 was plenty. Because, you know, with 1200, the characters would go like this up the screen faster than you could read them. So why would you need a modem to run 2400 bits per second? And then it was my turn to talk, and I said 2.94 megabits per second. And then there were a lot of questions like, what would you use that for? And then I eventually learned to give my PFMTS answer.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bob.
Yeah.
We're fortunate that Bob's going to stick around a little bit later today. He's looking forward to meeting all of you, and now it's time for lunch. Thank you again, Bob.
Thank you.